For more on this now, we're now joined by Western Cape MEC Agriculture, Dr. Ivan Meyer, and he joins us via our Zoom link. Dr. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. Of course, we've seen that the extent of the damage in your province has cost, or the estimate is rather 1 billion rand. Just tell us more about, the extent of the damage in your province.
Firstly, good evening and thank you for this opportunity. You are absolutely right. We have done an initial assessment of the floods, particularly in the areas of the Overberg, the West Coast and the Cape Winelands. These areas are significant agricultural production regions here in the Western Cape, and the damage was extensive, close to 1 billion rand, and that is our initial assessment. And once we have done our final assessments, I am convinced that it will be in excess of 1 billion rand. And the damages, they were mainly, as you rightly pointed out, in the local infrastructure, both private and public road infrastructure, also the irrigation equipment, almost in the region of 7 million rand, but also mainly the riverbanks, fencing on farms, the vineyards, the orchards, crop losses, but also loss of income of seasonal workers in the agricultural sector. And particularly in the region of the West Coast, it is a significant production area for citrus. You will know that South Africa is the second biggest exporter of citrus. So the damages were extensive, and we are currently busy with the post-disaster recovery plan and trying to fix it. In this week, on Tuesday, I have paid a visit to Citrusdal because the road was washed away. Repairs work is currently taking place. We have implemented a stop and go because between Citrusdal and the N7 road, that road was closed during the floods, but it has now been reopened, and we're currently busy with post-disaster recovery in those particular areas. But the damage was extensive. What this tells us is that climate change is real. Climate change is happening all over the world, and particularly what we have seen is that the damage was extensive, and the agricultural value production will be affected here in the Western Cape.
And MEC, one would say that the moment we speak about farms, and this devastation being done in the agricultural sector, it immediately affects jobs. Can we expect job losses in the sector?
Well, currently, right now, we know that the citrus farmers are now harvesting. We are a main exporter of citrus globally, and we have seen some loss of income of seasonal workers in the citrus industry. That particular loss of income is in the region of 18 million, in other words, 18 million loss of income in this particular area. And for us, this is particularly important because during the harvest season, not only for the Western Cape, but for foreign exchange in South Africa, it is important that we had to repair the road between Citrusdal and the N7, which is the main feeder road to Cape Town, to the harbour for the export. So yes, we are concerned about the loss of income. For us, it is also the first priority of the Western Cape government is to look after the safety of the citizens. And I am very saddened that we unfortunately have lost 2 people during this floods, but we do everything in our power now to fix the infrastructure, and our condolences to the family of those 2 people who have died during the floods.
And also, when you look at farms and farmers, one would say it is indeed a business because you are talking about, the situation here of exporting of goods. Do farmers have the necessary insurance to ensure that they can recover from this devastation from the floods?
Well, it's absolutely clear to me that the Western Cape is South Africa's biggest agricultural export region. In fact, 55% of all South Africa's agricultural products are being exported from the Western Cape. So it is significant losses to commercial agriculture, but also small-scale farmers have also lost. For example, here in the West Coast, lots of bee farmers have lost significant number of their beehives. So this is a major shock to the cash flow of our farmers in this particular area. This is a disaster, and that's why we are working with the various municipalities to declare this, to do an application to declare it as a local disaster and then eventually as a provincial disaster. I have little doubt that this will be classified as a provincial disaster, which will then allow the Western Cape provincial government to approach the National Disaster Management Centre and the National Department of Cooperative Governance in order to make the necessary finances available. But we do know from past experiences that the financial resources do not come immediately. Sometimes it comes 12 months later, 18 months later, and 24 months later. And the damage is so extensive that many of our farmers cannot wait for 24 months for assistance from the government.
And one would ask, what are the prospects here of ensuring that, farmers will get some sort of reprieve from the National Disaster Management Centre? As you say that you are appealing to that department to ensure that this is declared a national disaster.
Well, I have been briefed by my officials in terms of the initial assessments that have been taking place the last couple of weeks. And for now, I will have to go to the Western Cape Cabinet to formally make an application to the National Department together with my colleague, the Minister of Local Government. That process has already started. I have already alerted the national government of the extensive damage in the agricultural region here in the Western Cape.
And as a province, how long will it take for you to repair, some of the losses you have incurred because of these floods?
Well, the first priority for us was to fix the road, particularly those road infrastructure that cut off people, local citizens from the main arteries here and the main road infrastructure, particularly for the export and the transportation of the harvest that must go to the harbour. So what we have done with our Department of Infrastructure was to make first priority to see that we get the road infrastructure repaired. And I'm very proud that our Department of Infrastructure here in the Western Cape has spent around 7 days to fix one road that was washed away and that actually cut off a whole town from the rest of the Western Cape. And I'm particularly happy that that road infrastructure is partly repaired, because I have been there on Tuesday this week to see it for myself, and I've driven over that road, although it is still stop and go, so one way only traffic being controlled in that particular area. I've also been on the road between Citrusdal and Witzenberg, the Ceres Road. As you know, Witzenberg is one of the biggest soft fruit regions here in South Africa. I've also seen that that road is now also open, because the infrastructure, road infrastructure, is now critical because of this citrus harvest season, and the harvest must now go to the harbour in Cape Town for exports, particularly in Europe, the United States and Asia.
All right, Dr. Ivan, thank you so much for your time. That is Dr. Ivan Meyer, the MEC for Agriculture in the Western Cape. Clearly there a long way to go, a long road still to go for that province in terms of repairing, the damage which has been done caused by floods.